My name's Jared and I'm the project leader for this, and I've just been working on the underlying structures of the game and tying the whole thing together.
My name is Kanan Woodard, and I have added a lot of the defensive abilities, like the block and invincibility upgrades, among other things.
I'm Wissam Haddad, and I worked on many of the axe functions and also axe upgrades.
Sam, our other member, was unable to be with us today, but he has been working on the enemy and the enemy's AI. Along with having specific roles such as Sam developing the enemy and Kanan focusing on upgrades, I like to hand out random jobs that I think someone can do around the entire project. This gives them valuable experience outside of their own area. That way, I can upgrade the difficulty of the tasks I assign them to do, and they progressively learn more.
Everything that we have for our game starts at the boot stage, where we load all the necessary files for the preload, so that we can load in our files. Then we move on to our game title. State, which allows the user to start a new game, load a game, or change specific settings. If a user starts a new game or loads a game, we will be sent to the ship state. Where we have access to every other state in the game. We'll be able to go back to the main menu, view our axes, save our game, change certain keybinds, and go to different planets. Let's take a look at the View Axes button. From here, we have different presets that allow for different customization options for our axes. If the user clicks on one of these, they can see the current abilities that they have locked. Click on one of them to unlock them, use them, unlock, set them into the selected, and go back. And if you always forget to save, it gives you a notification. Using the Save Game button allows you to save your game. It also gives you a notification. And the Keybinds button allows you to change certain keybinds for specific moves and abilities. And if you click on one of the planet buttons, it takes you to a planet and allows you to actually fight the enemies in our game. From here, you can kill enemies. From here, you can fight our enemies, take down trees, and earn gold. And once you inevitably die, you'll be taken to our losing screen, where you can press space to start over.
So you saw some of the gameplay with Kanan's short walkthrough, but the driving mechanic of the game is this. The player's goal is to get the best axe that he can. To get the best axe, he has to equip more abilities. To get abilities, he has to gain experience and level up. In order to pay for those abilities, though, to actually use the axe, he has to have gold to buy it. And he gets gold from cutting down trees, and gets experience from killing enemies. Now, to make sure that the player tries to clear the planet as fast as he can without just taking his time farming, the atmosphere of the planet will damage the player over time, increasing with the amount of trees that he's cut down. And the planets get progressively more difficult as the player clears more planets.
Let's take a look at how our game is organized. As you can see here, our colored files correspond to the object they inherit. For example, the tree, enemy, and player controller need to be damageable, so to keep our code dry, we choose to condense all these shared methods into one file, damageable. You can also see this inheritance within the orb object. And then, as you can see, the black borders represent folders each file is organized into in order to keep corresponding files together. And of course, these folders are inside the in-game objects folder to keep our whole game organized.
Alright, so for our final flowchart, we have the game. And so the game is an important object throughout the entire project because we can reference it from almost anywhere doing this.game. Now, what you have access to when you do this is you have access to the player manager, the notifier, and the planet manager. The notifier just notifies stuff. It's really basic. Planet manager just allows you to randomly generate some numbers to create a planet. Now, player manager is more often used. From here, you can access the player's axe manager, which has all 6 presets, the planet set, which stores the 3 planet choices, and the current planet, the keybind manager, which abilities can find what key they need to use from that, and the current player controller, which is always helpful in many cases. And another big feature of having the player manager have all these other things easily accessible is I can simply do a load data and save data function on the player manager, then that'll automatically go to all of its children easily via a function. So here's a quick example of the game object. So here in the enemy, we pass the game in via the constructor, and then we set it to the object so we can access it anywhere on the object. And also while we're here, you can see the damageable that WeSam told you that the enemy inherits earlier. So if we go down here, you'll see, so this is when the enemy dies. We want to give the player experience and drop a stamina orb. That way the player can gain some stamina upon its death. So instead of just intertwining everything together with random functions and everything, we have the game object where you can get the current state, and then in the game state, all the groups are defined there, so we can simply add an orb, and then we can get the player manager, which I told you about earlier from the game, and then just change its experience. So it's just simple like that. So I think one of our best examples of code, because it shows organization and usability, is the axe upgrades. So the axe upgrade starts as this. Every upgrade will have an ID, price, etc. And so these upgrades are applied either beforehand, before the axe is created, or it's applied at runtime, so you can add functions to the axe itself. So an example of this is the frenzy upgrade. So the frenzy upgrade, what it does is it just makes the axe head bigger. So it's going to inherit from the axe upgrade, so it's going to get all of that stuff up here, and it'll call that constructor. And then it's also going to have add-ons, which I'll get to in a moment. It has a cooldown add-on and the button activated add-on. So this one chooses to use the apply upgrade at runtime, and so it just attaches some functions to the player axe, which allows it to make the axe bigger when you press the, I think, F button. Anyways, so I mentioned the add-ons. Down here you can see this again. So what the add-ons do is I realized that many of these abilities or upgrades share the need for similar things. For example, being activated by a button. So I made it easy and just wrapped it all up into an add-on that you can just easily drop in to an upgrade like this. All you have to do is call the constructor, add it to an object assignment, and then each add-on has its own special thing that it uses. The button activated add-on just takes a single line down here, single function call. And for all these add-ons, I've created a guide. That way it's easier for us to go back and add new upgrades without having to think about it too much. And same thing down here with the upgrade usage guide. And this just tells people how to create upgrades, and so it's easy to add. And then you can, while we're here, you can just see the organization we have going on in the file tree. And there's a lot of files.
Our art is directly inspired by works such as Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery and Adventure Time. We choose to use pixel art as we believe it gives it a nice look. We have a couple of different types of trees that we hope to randomly generate around the planet as to keep the environments looking fresh and new to the player. For the player's stats, we decided to use gauges that you would find on gear of an astronaut. And as for the lumberjack himself, in the future we may try to implement a real-time indicator of what's happening to the player through an animated face in the corner of the screen. And here's the initial look we are hoping to achieve for the player sprite to be like. The character is meant to animate similarly to characters from these works like Finn and the characters from Super Brothers. Of course, we still need to add animation for the movement, but that is not a major concern as of now. And lastly, we have a few ground tiles to show that will later on have different colors that are randomly generated as to, again, keep the environment looking fresh and new. This is only some of the art you are seeing here, and we plan to add much more in the coming weeks leading to the final deadline.